For years, Filipinos were seen as the world's silent workers. Respected, yes, but never truly recognized. But that just changed. Nations that once looked down are now looking up, from Japan to the UK, from the Middle East to Europe. The world is finally realizing the truth. Filipinos aren't just keeping systems alive, they're redefining excellence itself. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments, and I will give you a heart. You know, for decades, the world painted Filipinos with one brush. Smiling, hardworking, dependable, but always in the background. The nurse who stayed late, the seafarer who never missed a shift, the domestic helper who sent every penny home. The kind of worker the world depended on but never truly celebrated. But guess what? That story just changed, and not because someone handed us respect, but because we earned it in ways the world couldn't ignore any longer. Let's start with what's happening right now. In 2025, there are more than 10.2 million Filipinos living and working overseas. That's not just a statistic, that's nearly 10% of our entire population, powering hospitals, ships, classrooms, and entire economies across 170 countries. And for the first time ever, major global institutions are admitting it. The UK's National Health Service released a public statement this year calling Filipino nurses the pillar of consistency in their healthcare system. Japan's Ministry of Health just reported that Filipino caregivers now make up 21% of their elder care workforce. Even Canada, in its 2025 immigration update, said, and I quote, "Without Filipino healthcare workers, our national care infrastructure would collapse." So the question is, why now? Why is the world suddenly saying what Filipinos have always known? Because the numbers don't lie. The Philippines is currently the world's largest exporter of healthcare professionals. Over 25% of nurses in the Middle East are Filipino. The cruise industry, 8 out of every 10 ships have Filipino crew. The global BPO sector, Filipinos make up 15% of its workforce, generating billions in productivity each year. The world finally realized that the quiet workforce they took for granted is the engine that never stopped running, even when everything else fell apart. But here's where it gets deeper. When the pandemic hit, who was on the front line? Filipinos. When global supply chains broke down, who kept them afloat? Filipinos. When elderly patients were left without family, who held their hands through the night? Filipinos. For years, the world didn't see the faces behind the resilience. But when every nation hit crisis mode, it was Filipino hands, hearts, and hard work that stood in the gap. And you know what's beautiful? We didn't do it for applause. We did it because that's who we are. Because helping others isn't just a job, it's a reflection of our core. Filipinos are raised on bayanihan, that deep, quiet sense of communal care that says, if you fall, I'll lift you. That value doesn't stay in the Philippines. It travels with every ofaima, every nurse, every teacher, every seafarer who carries a piece of home into the world. And it's that spirit that's finally turning heads. In London, hospitals have started printing posters that say, "Thank you, Filipino nurses." In Dubai, Filipino engineers are being promoted to managerial roles faster than any other nationality. In Tokyo, Japan's Elderly Care Association launched a campaign recognizing Filipino workers as the gentle backbone of compassion. Let that sink in. Compassion, something we've always given naturally, is now being recognized as a global strength. But let's not forget, it wasn't always this way. For years, our people were mocked, underpaid, even abused. The headlines from the early 2000s are painful. OFWs coming home in tears, families broken, sacrifices ignored. Yet we never quit. We built reputations, one act of kindness, one night shift, one success story at a time. And now, those stories have added up into something powerful. Global respect. Think about this. Filipinos send home over $39 billion, 0 cents in remittances every single year. That's more than the GDP of 90 countries. That money isn't just feeding families, it's keeping the entire Philippine economy alive. And it's coming from people who work in silence but live with pride. Every time a Filipino nurse buys medicine for a patient out of pocket, every seafarer who misses Christmas but still sings carols on deck, every nanny who watches over someone else's children while dreaming of their own, those moments built the foundation of the respect we're seeing now. But the real twist? The world is now learning from us. Management schools in Singapore are studying the Filipino service mindset. The Harvard Business Review even published an article titled "The Emotional Intelligence of Filipino Workers," praising our empathy as a strategic advantage in global leadership. You heard that right. Empathy is now power. Something our grandparents carried like second nature is now being taught as a leadership skill And this is where it hits home. The world didn't start respecting Filipinos because we demanded it. They started respecting us because while everyone else chased success, we chased purpose. When others looked for shortcuts, we showed up early. When others talked, we listened. When others gave up, we stayed. That quiet consistency, that's our superpower. But here's my question for you watching right now. Do you feel that same pride? Because respect only matters if we claim it. If you've ever worked abroad, missed family, or watched your loved one board a plane for a better life, type respect in the comments below. Because this movement isn't about one country thanking us. It's about the world finally catching up to what we've always known, that the Filipino spirit cannot be replaced. And trust me, this is just the beginning, because in the next part, we're not just talking about recognition, we're talking about transformation. The world isn't just saying thank you anymore. They're starting to follow the Filipino example. Stay with me. Let's be honest, respect didn't come easy. For years, Filipinos had to prove themselves 10 times over in countries that barely acknowledge them. You've seen it, I've seen it. Our kababayans work in double shifts, smiling through exhaustion, and still getting side-eyed just because of their nationality. But now, tables are turning, and the same nations that once overlooked Filipino workers are now fighting to keep them. Take Canada, for example. The Canadian government recently admitted that Filipino immigrants are among the most reliable contributors to their national economy. A 2025 report from Statistics Canada revealed that Filipino Canadians have one of the highest employment participation rates in the country, 86%. That's higher than most immigrant groups and even higher than many native-born Canadians. Hospitals in Ontario and Alberta are literally begging for more Filipino nurses because retention rates are off the charts. Why? Because we don't quit. When everyone else taps out, Filipinos show up, sleeves rolled, ready to go again. And then there's Japan, a country known for its discipline, order, and perfectionism. Guess who they've started modeling their caregiving culture after? Filipinos. Japan's Health and Welfare Ministry launched a Care with Heart campaign inspired directly by Filipino caregivers. They said, quote, "Filipinos care not just with skill, but with soul." That's right, the same culture that once looked down on foreign workers now studies us. That's respect earned, not given. Even the Middle East, where millions of OFWs have endured hardship, is shifting its tone. Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development recently released a statement recognizing Filipinos for setting the global standard of dedication and reliability. Dubai's luxury hotels, the ones you see in glossy magazines, now feature Filipino managers leading entire teams. In Qatar's Hamad Medical Corporation, 1 out of every 3 nurses is Filipino. And after seeing how seamless and caring Filipino staff are, they've started giving special leadership training programs exclusively to Pinoy healthcare professionals. But let's pull the curtain back for a second. Why is all this happening now? Because countries are finally facing a reality they can't ignore. The global labor crisis. Europe, Canada, Japan, even Australia, their populations are aging fast. They don't have enough young workers, and they don't have enough people willing to do the jobs that actually keep societies alive. Meanwhile, the Philippines, we're one of the youngest workforces in Asia with a median age of 25. That's why suddenly everyone wants us, not just as workers, but as partners in rebuilding their future. Here's what most people don't realize. The Filipino workforce isn't just about skill, it's about adaptability. The world changes fast, technology evolves, languages shift, but Filipinos, we adjust like water. You can throw a Pinoy nurse in London, a teacher in Dubai, or an engineer in Tokyo. Give them a few weeks, and they'll speak the language, learn the system, and still find a way to cook adobe on weekends. That's not just talent, that's cultural intelligence. And the world is finally paying attention. But here's where I get fired up, because despite all this global respect, back home, our heroes are still struggling. Many OFWs returned to the Philippines with broken savings, broken health, sometimes broken families. They left to give their loved ones a better life, but the system rarely gives them a soft place to land when they come back. We celebrate their remittances, $39 billion 0 cents last year, but how often do we protect their future? How often do we help them build businesses, reintegrate, or secure retirement? That's the part that stings. The world respects us more than our own government sometimes does. So while the world is waking up, it's time the Philippines wakes up too. Because if other nations see our people as the key to survival, then our leaders should see them as the key to transformation. We can't just be proud of Filipinos abroad. We need to invest in them at home. Create pathways where OFWs can come back to manage, innovate, and lead. Imagine if the same nurse who managed a ward in London ran a hospital in Manila, or if a Filipino seafarer started his own logistics firm after years of global experience. Respect abroad should translate to opportunity at home. And speaking of respect, let's take a second right now to honor every Filipino watching who's ever sacrificed being with their family for the sake of providing for them. If that's you, type "Proud Pinoy" in the comments. Because what you do is not small. You are the living bridge between nations. The reason why economies don't collapse, and the reason why the Filipino flag flies high in places it never used to. Now here's the irony. While global powers are racing to recruit Filipinos, our own education system can't keep up with the demand. The Department of Migrant Workers reported that 70% of new OFWs in 2024 were healthcare. That means entire hospitals abroad depend on our graduates. The UK alone approved 22,000 new visas for Filipino nurses this year. Japan, another 15,000 caregivers. Canada, 11,000 more. The world's hunger for Filipino labor is rising faster than ever before. But that also means something else. We are now a global power, not because of weapons or politics, but because of people. The Philippines exports compassion, resilience, and skill. And when the world respects you for that, you've already won something money can't buy: dignity. So yes, the respect we're getting is long overdue, but it's not just about applause, it's about leverage. We have the power now to redefine what it means to be Filipino on the world stage. And the next segment, we'll talk about exactly that, how Filipinos are moving from being the world's workers to becoming the world's decision makers. Stay right there. Now let's get real. Respect is one thing, but power? That's something else entirely. And Filipinos are finally stepping into both. For the longest time, we've been the engine behind the world's progress. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. But now, we're not just driving the system, we're steering it. Because for the first time in history, Filipinos are moving from the sidelines to the spotlight, not as helpers, but as leaders. Let's look at where this shift is already happening. In the United States, more than 4.3 million Filipinos now make up one of the largest immigrant communities. But here's what most people don't know. Filipinos are now the second largest group of healthcare professionals in America, only behind Americans themselves. That's right, from California to New York, hospitals literally cannot function without Filipino nurses, caregivers, and doctors. And it's not just at the bedside anymore. Filipinos are leading hospital departments, managing medical research, and teaching in top universities. UCLA, Johns Hopkins, even Harvard, you'll find Filipino professors shaping the future of medicine and ethics. And the respect? It's visible now. When the U.S. Veterans Affairs Hospital released its 2025 workforce data, it specifically highlighted Filipino nurses as the gold standard of care. That's not charity talk, that's recognition backed by data, performance, and consistency. Because while some show up for a paycheck, Filipinos show up for a purpose. Let's move to the Middle East. In Dubai, Doha, Riyadh, you'll find Filipino engineers designing skyscrapers, Filipino chefs running five-star kitchens, and Filipino women leading corporate HR teams in multinational companies. The stereotype of Filipinos being just helpers has been shattered completely. In fact, in 2024, the Gulf Times ran an editorial calling Filipinos Asia's professional backbone. That phrase alone says it all. We're no longer the world's workforce, we're the world's workforce managers. And it's not just abroad. Back home, a quiet revolution is happening too. The Philippines is now among the top 5 remote work exporters globally. Thousands of Filipinos are working online for companies in the US, Canada, and Europe, earning dollars while staying home with their families. They're proof that you don't need to leave the country to succeed. The world now comes to the Filipino. To the combination of discipline, English fluency, and technical skill has made Filipinos the most in-demand freelancers on earth. And that's not an exaggeration. Upwork's 2025 Global Skills Index listed Filipinos as the most reliable remote workforce, outranking India, Brazil, and even the US in consistency and communication. But here's the twist. Despite all this respect and opportunity, many Filipinos still underestimate their own worth. Maybe it's because of decades of being undervalued, or because humility is just in our DNA. But let's be clear. Humility doesn't mean silence. It means grace with strength. The time for downplaying ourselves is over. The world already sees our value. It's time we do too. Because here's the truth, we're not lucky to work abroad, the world is lucky to have us. Our compassion isn't weakness, it's leadership. Our hospitality isn't servitude, it's influence. And our adaptability isn't survival, it's strategy. The same traits the world once saw as submissive are now being recognized as the future of human-centered leadership. Let me drop something powerful here. According to the World Economic Forum, by 2030, empathy, cultural intelligence, and adaptability will be the top 3 skills employers will pay the most for. Sound familiar? Those are the exact qualities that define the Filipino worker. So while the world trains for what's next, Filipinos were already born for it. Now here's the challenge. If the world respects us, we have to respect ourselves enough to demand better. Better pay, better treatment, better opportunities, because the moment you realize your worth, you stop settling for less. That's when respect turns into power, and power isn't just about money or position, it's about choice. The choice to stay, to lead, to create. So to every Filipino watching this, wherever you are, from the nurse on a night shift in London, to the teacher in Riyadh, to the seafarer crossing the Pacific, remember this: you are not replaceable. You are not invisible, you are essential. The world has finally said it out loud. Now it's our turn to say it to ourselves. If you believe that Filipinos deserve the respect and leadership roles they've fought decades to earn, type vision in the comments, because this is not just about recognition, it's about evolution. From resilience to influence, from hard work to leadership, from survival to legacy. And make no mistake, this isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where the Filipino doesn't just keep the world running, the Filipino defines where the world goes next. Because when the world respects you, that's good, but when the world needs you, that's history. And right now, history speaks Tagalog.